a long, long time ago, before there was anything. No trees, no rivers, no animals, and not even the sun or the stars. There was only God. It was quiet and still, because nothing had been made yet. But God was there, and he was full of power, love, and a great plan. God looked at the empty, dark space, and he had an amazing idea. He was going to create something wonderful. He would create the whole world, everything in it, and he would make it all good. So, on the first day, God spoke. He said, "Let there be light." Suddenly, from nothing, there was light. It was bright and beautiful, filling the darkness with its warm glow. God looked at the light and smiled. He saw that it was good, but there was still darkness too. So God decided to separate them. He called the light day, and he called the darkness night. Evening came, and then morning. This was the very first day ever. On the second day, God had another idea. He wanted to make a big, open space above the earth. He spoke again and said, "Let there be a sky." And just like that, the sky appeared. It was wide and blue, stretching far above the earth. The sky was like a big dome, separating the waters above from the waters below. God looked at the sky and smiled again. He saw that it was good. On the third day, God wanted to do even more. He looked at the waters below and said, "Let the waters gather in one place, and let dry land appear." As soon as God spoke, the waters moved, and dry land appeared. The dry land became earth, and the waters became seas. But God wasn't done yet. He looked at the dry land and said, "Let plants grow." And instantly, green grass, tall trees, and beautiful flowers started growing all over the land. Some trees grew fruit like apples and oranges, while others grew nuts and berries. Plants of all shapes and sizes covered the earth. God looked at everything he had made that day, and again he smiled. It was all good. On the fourth day, God decided to fill the sky with something amazing. He said, "Let there be lights in the sky to separate day from night, and let them mark seasons, days, and years." And just like that, the sun appeared to shine during the day, filling the sky with its bright, golden light. Then, God created the moon to shine at night, along with countless stars that twinkled like tiny diamonds in the dark sky. The sun, moon, and stars were beautiful, and God knew they were good. The world was now full of light, sky, land, and plants, but God was only just getting started. There was so much more to come, and he had a grand plan for the creatures he would soon bring to life. On the fifth day, God looked at the sky and the seas. They were beautiful, but something was missing. There was no movement, no sound of wings flapping in the air or splashing in the waters. So, God spoke again, and this time he said, "Let the waters be filled with living creatures, and let birds fly across the sky." Suddenly, the oceans, lakes, and rivers were teeming with life. Fish of all shapes and sizes began swimming through the waters. There were little fish that darted around like silver arrows, and big, mighty whales that glided gracefully through the deep seas. Colorful sea creatures like dolphins, octopuses, and crabs danced and moved in the water, each one special and different. At the same time, the sky was filled with birds of every kind. There were tiny, quick birds that zipped through the air, and large, strong eagles soaring high above the trees. Their wings flapped as they glided across the sky, chirping, tweeting, and filling the world with beautiful sounds. Some birds had feathers as bright as the rainbow, while others blended in with the trees and the clouds. It was all so wonderful. God looked at the fish swimming in the seas and the birds flying in the sky, and he smiled. He was pleased with what he had made. Then he blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the waters and the skies with your families." And so, the fish multiplied in the seas, and the birds filled the sky with their joyful songs. Evening came, and then morning. That was the fifth day. On the sixth day, God wasn't done yet. The world was already full of light, skies, seas, and creatures that swam and flew, but something was still missing. There were no animals on the dry land, and God had a plan for something very special that he would make on this day. First, he spoke and said, "Let the land produce living creatures." And just like that, the earth began to rumble, and animals of all kinds appeared. Some were big and strong, like elephants and lions, while others were small and quick, like rabbits and squirrels. There were cows, horses, and sheep that roamed the fields, and wild animals that prowled through the forests. God also made creeping things, like lizards and insects that scurried across the ground. Every animal was different. Some had fur, some had scales, and others had feathers. They each had their own sound, like the roar of a lion, the moo of a cow, and the chirp of a cricket. The animals filled the land, and once again, God saw that it was good. But God wasn't finished yet. There was one more creation that would be the most special of all. Something that would reflect his image, something that could love him and be loved in return. God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and over all the animals on the earth." So, God created the very first man. He named him Adam. God formed Adam from the dust of the ground and breathed into him the breath of life. Adam's eyes opened, and he took his first breath. He was alive, and he was different from all the other creatures because he was made in God's image. He could think, feel, speak, and understand. Adam was special. God gave Adam a beautiful garden called Eden to live in. It was a paradise, full of trees with delicious fruits and rivers that flowed with cool, clear water. In this garden, Adam would take care of the plants and animals. But God saw that Adam was alone, and he didn't want him to be lonely. So, God made Adam fall into a deep sleep. While Adam was sleeping, God took one of Adam's ribs and made a woman. When Adam woke up, he saw the woman, and he was overjoyed. He named her Eve, and she became his wife and helper. Together, Adam and Eve were the first humans, and they were different from all the other creatures because they could talk to God, love him, and take care of the beautiful world he had made. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and take care of it." Evening came, and then morning. That was the sixth day. On the seventh day, something very special happened. After all the amazing work of creating the heavens, the earth, the plants, the animals, and the first humans, God did something he hadn't done yet. He rested. Now, God wasn't tired like we get after a long day of work. No, God never gets tired. But this rest was different. It was a peaceful rest, a time to look back at everything he had made and enjoy it. So, on this seventh day, God stopped creating and took time to admire the beauty and perfection of his creation. God saw the bright sun shining in the sky, the moon glowing softly at night, the stars twinkling like tiny diamonds. He saw the deep, blue seas full of colorful fish, and he watched the birds flying gracefully through the air. He saw the trees standing tall and strong, the flowers blooming in all kinds of colors, and the animals roaming across the land. But most of all, he saw Adam and Eve, the humans he had made in his own image, and he smiled. Everything was perfect. God then blessed the seventh day and made it holy. This day would be a special day of rest, a day to remember all the good things he had made. It was a day for enjoying the beauty of the world and reflecting on how wonderful it was. God wanted his creation to have rest too, and that's why we now have a day of rest called the Sabbath. The garden where Adam and Eve lived was called Eden, and it was a paradise unlike anything we can imagine. Eden was full of the most beautiful trees and plants, with flowers that blossomed in every color of the rainbow. There were trees that grew delicious fruit like apples, oranges, and bananas. A clear, sparkling river ran through the middle of the garden, watering all the plants and making the whole place green and full of life. Adam and Eve lived in perfect peace with all the animals. The lions didn't roar in anger. They calmly walked beside the sheep. The birds sang joyful songs, and the trees provided shade for Adam and Eve as they walked through the garden. Every day was a beautiful day in Eden. Adam and Eve were given the special job of taking care of the garden. They tended to the plants and made sure everything stayed healthy and beautiful. But there was no hard work, no sweating or getting tired. Everything grew easily, and there were no thorns or weeds. It was as if the whole garden worked together to stay perfect, just as God had made it. In the middle of the Garden of Eden, there were two very important trees. One was called the Tree of Life, and the other was called the Tree of the Knowledge of Good and Evil. God told Adam and Eve that they could eat from any tree in the garden, except for the Tree of the Knowledge of Good and Evil. He gave them a command: "You must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for the day you eat from it, you will surely die." This was a simple rule, and God gave it to Adam and Eve because He loved them. He wanted them to trust Him and follow His command, so that they could live in peace and happiness forever. As long as they obeyed, they would live in perfect harmony with God, with each other, and with the world around them. Adam and Eve had everything they needed: food, peace, and a perfect relationship with God. They lived in the most beautiful place on earth, where nothing was broken or wrong. They didn't feel sadness, fear, or anger. Everything was good, just as God had made it. In the next part, we will dive into the temptation of Adam and Eve and how the perfect world of Eden changed.